Hi, this is Amy Wan, and I'm here with Dave Hendricks of Vertalo. Vertalo is a gold corporate member of the Security Token Academy. So welcome, Dave.
Hey, Amy, how are you? It's good to see you.
I'm good, yeah. Well, it's really great to see you too. I hear your company is doing a lot of fascinating things. So give us an update on, what's happening.
Well, we're here tonight in Los Angeles at the Ethos Society, and we're talking about simplifying and broadening access to digital assets and tokenization. So what we've been doing over the last, say 3 or 4 months is making things simpler, making things less expensive, broadening acceptance. So I think we'll talk about this a little bit in this interview.
Yeah, well, let's go on that topic. What do you think right now are the challenges towards larger or more mainstream adoption of digital assets?
Well, first, there's the quality of the projects. Investors are always interested in investing in teams, technology, businesses that they believe in.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've seen early projects come out of the gates with, maybe projects that weren't fundable by venture capital, et cetera. So I think that's one of the first kind of hurdles to adoption was just, quality, was it investable? Some of the projects weren't so great. But I don't think that that's the long-term problem. I think that's going to get sorted out. The broker-dealers that Vertalo works with, and we work primarily through broker-dealers, are starting to increase the quality of the offerings. But the broker-dealers have not been able to solve one thing, and this is the thing that Vertalo's really been working on. And that is getting rid of the technological obstacles for mainstream adoption, specifically the wallet.
Yes.
Probably the hardest thing for a regular retail investor or even a family office is the notion of dealing with a crypto wallet. It's just a hard thing. MetaMask is not easy.
Yeah, and it's scary to do it too, right? If you do something wrong, then who knows where your assets are?
Right. And so asking investors who already have to figure out whether a deal is worth investing in, having them also have to figure out how to custody their own tokens, how to bring a wallet to a transaction, that puts a hurdle up which probably knocks 80% of the investors out. So that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that selling a token first, investing in a token, is probably the first order problem. Okay, you've got a wallet, then a token. It may be little known, but some funds cannot invest in tokens.
Yeah.
They actually have it in their bylaws. And a lot of people don't want to buy a token because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to operate a wallet. They don't know how to buy a token. So saying that we're selling a token is probably also a barrier to implementation.
It's off-putting.
To adoption. Oh, it is off-putting. And so what Vertalo's been working on is not only abstracting the wallet, but also abstracting the token. So we enable projects that want to issue a digital asset to use our technology through a broker-dealer or directly to raise money without a wallet and invest in a real company with the potential and capability to tokenize later. So our technology enables any offerer to issue a token, even if they raised money 5 years ago.
That's fantastic.
They can upload their cap table into our system, and with one button, they can produce tokens to custodial wallets that the investor does not need to know how to use. If our business, the thing that we're in, is about expanding acceptance and adoption of digital assets, you actually have to hide some of the technology. Because that's not what people are not, if they're interested in infrastructure investing,
right.
Well, yeah, sure, go invest in token companies.
Yeah.
But people want to invest in the underlying asset. So how do you knock the barriers down to investing in those underlying assets? You've got to abstract wallets, meaning make it so that anyone can invest and they don't have to use a wallet, and then make it so they don't have to worry about custodying a token themselves.
And we were actually talking a little bit earlier about this, but another challenge is just even the cost of issuing a token, right? Can you talk about that?
Well, asking a project that's trying to raise money to front you $100,000 or even $50,000 to build a token for an audience that is yet unknown is probably also a problem that is getting in the way of adoption. So imagine you are a company with a groundbreaking idea, an amazing team, and you've got this huge market. And you say, well, of course we want to have a digital asset because we believe in self-sovereign ownership. We
Right.
believe in direct listing, which is what Vertalo enables, direct listing. If you want to issue one of those assets today, you're being asked to front 50 or 100 or more thousand to produce that token at the same time that you're working on your product, at the same time that you're doing a roadshow or trying to raise money. It's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
for teams that aren't necessarily big, and it's a lot for teams that may be cash strapped.
Right, right.
So we have been developing approaches since we started, and this was in early 2018, to make it so that any issuer could do a fundraise, and then at the end of the fundraise, they could issue a token if they so chose to do so. If they didn't want to issue the token yet, our system allows them to kick that can down the road, and in a year,
When they're ready.
they can issue the token. The key thing is you understand this because you understand securities law, that you've got this thing called Reg D and Rule 144,
Right.
So you can still do this and maintain compliance with the long hold period, the restriction
Right.
period.
Right. I do want to return to your point about working with broker-dealers in a second, but it just seems like you have a very different vision of the security token industry from a lot of the other players in the industry. So then why are you working with broker-dealers? What advantage does that bring to Vertalo? What advantage does that bring to the broker-dealer?
I think that anyone who's been selling anything, especially high-ticket items that have long implementation cycles, understands that trying to diligence a client that you're going to go start work for is time-consuming. It's very, very difficult to figure out and discern which project is going to succeed in its fundraise.
Right.
So rather than sign those projects up and then hope we're going to get paid if they can raise money,
Right.
we would rather take the diligence and have it be done properly by a broker-dealer who legally can take 5, 7, 10% of the proceeds from the fundraise as their fee. Because they can get paid on a performance basis like that, which you can't unless you're a broker-dealer,
Right.
they can also afford to do diligence up front. Broker-dealers do diligence so they can figure out whether the projects they choose can raise money. I want to benefit from that. So Vertalo works with broker-dealers. We give our technology to broker-dealers. They can white label our onboarding, cap table, and token distribution technology and use it for their fundraises. It produces a beautiful cap table at the end of the process. We can syndicate broker-dealers so that 5 of them, 10 of them can work on the same deal, all ending up in the same blockchain-enabled cap table.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and by doing that, we move the risk away from us,
Right.
and we get the client when it's more mature.
Right.
Meaning it is actually someone else has decided can raise money. So we give the technology to broker-dealers to enable them to bring clients to us. And that way we get real clients that are capable of paying. Because after you've done all the work, it's opportunity cost, right?
Right.
I can only have so many, 2-hour conversations.
Right.
And to your question before here, I can't tell if they've done their proper filings. I don't know whether I don't want to go through their PPM. That's not my business.
Right. So leave that to the professionals.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
exactly.
You said that Vertalo started in early 2018. We're now midway through 2019. So over the past year and a half, what is your opinion about where the security token industry is today, where it's going?
Well, I think that the future is extremely bright.
Okay.
In the last couple of days, we saw YouNow and Blockstack both
Yes.
get Reg A plus approvals.
Yes, that's huge.
That's really huge, because what you're seeing is SEC and FINRA saying, yes, digital assets are a thing, and they're a thing that we can approve. So what you've seen recently is Andreessen Horowitz changing its entire firm to
Yes.
registered investment advisors.
Right.
The reason, and making investments in companies like Harbor, making investments in companies like Carta. Remember, Andreessen Horowitz is the biggest crypto VC. These guys realize that there's something big. There's a mega trend happening. Circle, which is a crypto fund company in Boston, bought Seed Invest, which is a broker dealer.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to see these patterns across acquisitions, rehypothecations of venture funds, et cetera, where people are going to get ready for this. It's the amount of money that the big banks have spent, that NASDAQ and NYSE through ICE have invested in this. All of these investments, all of these things point to a massive trend. And that massive trend is this. The era of paper-based certificates, which are owned by proxy, is coming to an end. The era that we're entering now is the era of direct ownership and direct listing. Direct ownership means I have a wallet, custodial wallet or self-sovereign wallet,
Right.
where my ownership of my stock options, that company that I invested in, that's all there. And I can sell that under rules that have been encoded in a digital
Smart
asset
contract,
token,
yeah.
smart contract. And then you see things like Slack. Now, do you remember what happened, what Slack did a couple weeks ago?
They IPO'd.
No.
What?
They direct listed. They did not
interesting.
IPO. They actually didn't go. What happens with an IPO is that an IPO, a company dilutes itself. It sells those dilutive shares to an investment bank, and then the investment bank gets to sell them in an offering.
Yeah.
But the employees and the early investors and the founders in an IPO are locked up for months. What Stuart Butterfield did in the Slack direct listing is they didn't dilute. They sold employee shares, investor shares, and founder shares
interesting.
directly to the market.
Interesting.
Vertalo is developing direct listing technology. So you can take your company, bring its cap table into our system, produce a digital asset that represents the ownership, the real sovereign ownership of the asset, and then connect it to an exchange and sell it.
And get liquidity.
And get liquidity, okay? Because you're not going to get liquidity. People ask, and I know this question's going to come up, like, when liquidity, sir?
Yes.
Right?
Always.
When liquidity? How do you expect to get liquidity from an early stage startup in the first year after it's trading?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in the thousands of VC deals that are done.
Right.
I mean, 5 to 7 years is even early for liquidity. I mean, my company was founded 2.5 years ago. How much liquidity, So expecting digital assets to have liquidity when the platforms for them have barely come online is nonsense. It's like they're focused on it. Anyway, any digital asset which was issued a year ago is already more liquid than any venture capital investment made 3 years ago, just by virtue of it being a digital asset that you can trade.
Right.
But where digital assets are going to be really, really interesting is when mature companies, ones with cash flows and clients and product and management teams and partners and bankers and lawyers, they can take those old spreadsheets, those single entry ledgers that they keep in cap table systems and in Excel, put them on a platform like Vertalo, turn them into a digital asset, and then list those on an exchange like T0 or Liquid, okay, or Bitsum,
And get their payday.
okay, and to get their payday, because the investors and the team will actually own their shares, and they'll be in the form of a digital asset, in like they'll be able to sell. That's where the magic is. It's not in tokenizing early stage companies for $100,000. That's not the revolution that I'm in.
Right, right.
My revolution is I'm an entrepreneur. I have interest in 5 private companies. I can't sell them because there's no market for them, because my ownership is on a spreadsheet somewhere.
Right.
It's not in my wallet. It's not in my control. Direct ownership, direct listing. That's how security tokens and digital assets are going to take off. And hear me now and believe me later, that's going to happen.
So you actually just came back from a whirlwind tour for weeks around the world, really. What's the ecosystem of the international security token system look like?
I have never seen a city, a society who's more crypto captivated than Korea.
Ah.
It's amazing. The teams that I met in Korea, Block Crafters, Art Block, Xtalk, Bitsum, so many others. I met with the Korean NASDAQ, KOSDAQ. Mm-hmm. I met with Eugene Securities, Hanwha Securities. All of these companies across the board, from the smallest to the biggest, are all interested in digital assets. And so we immediately started signing partnerships while we were there.
Oh, wow.
We already have clients that signed on since we were in Korea. Mm-hmm. We're meeting with major investment banks, major law firms, and going into LOIs with them, because that society was really interested in crypto as a whole.
Yes.
It's really interesting. Japan is, we went from Korea to Tokyo. Tokyo has a history now in the last several years of being very crypto friendly.
Right.
And so we met investors in projects and exchanges there that are now looking at coming into the States. Here's the interesting thing. Both Korea and Japan, those folks, they want to work in our regulated environment. They actually see what we have as having regulatory clarity. And
That's
so
really
they're
interesting.
looking to our market to provide normalcy and figure out how these things should work. So it was mind-blowing and eye-opening, and it was humbling is the wrong word. Just I was really excited to get to meet these people and see all these interesting projects, and they really believe in it. And the things they're doing with real estate over there, the things they're doing with fractionalizing art, mm-hmm. All kinds of projects, and really, really high quality.
It's interesting that you make that comment, because I remember in the early days in June 2017 when the SEC came out and said, hey, regular securities laws applies to all these ICOs and these token sales. Everyone feared that would stifle and freeze the American innovation in this mm-hmm. industry, and the rest of the world would take the lead. And you're saying, actually that was the right approach.
Mm-hmm. I actually see that the laws give people commonality to understand how things work better than language do. We're seeing American companies go there. We're seeing Korean, Japanese companies come here. And what you can do with a smart contract is super interesting, because you can encode it with geofencing or jurisdictional right. restrictions. You can also do interesting things by, the travel rule, which says, okay, if you go and you can only transact in certain countries mm-hmm. and you have to show credentials. Mm-hmm. Well, the travel rule is basically just like a programming rule for an API.
Yeah.
And so one of the exchanges they've announced, I think I can say that Bitsum mm-hmm. is coming over to the United States. And they're going to have operations in Korea, the United States, and other places. And what they're going to do is, when an investor goes to their site, mm-hmm. they're going to be able to route that customer to the appropriate country for trading whatever asset they want to trade. And you can do that in 25 milliseconds.
Very interesting.
Okay, so they're going global. They're not hidebound. It's quite the opposite.
So then what are your industry predictions for the next 18 months, through 2020?
Well, I think that the cost of so-called tokenization is going to continue to decline.
Okay.
It has to. Tokenization as a core business is probably going to be given away soon.
Interesting.
We're already working with parties that are getting very aggressive in this respect.
Okay.
They need other value adds because
Okay.
there's so much competition to create a smart contract.
Right.
There's just no reason why you need to spend $100,000 to write a smart contract.
Right.
I mean, maybe someone can explain that to me, but we built our own smart contracts and we know it doesn't cost that. So I think that you're going to see a very, very rapid decline in the cost of tokenization. That's the first thing.
Okay.
You're going to see, because of the SEC's ruling last week, you're going to see the nuance, a distinction between a broker-dealer and custodian that's going to come into high relief.
Okay.
Okay, and that the capital requirements for broker-dealers will get them kind of out of the custody business.
Okay.
And so you're going to see actually custodians, like Prime Trust, they're going to move up.
Okay.
Broker-dealers, enabled by technology like my firms, are going to be able to get into the game of the digital asset game.
Okay.
And then you're going to see mature companies that are not big enough to IPO use direct listing, okay, in order to get liquidity.
Interesting.
Okay, like Slack.
Right.
Because unless you're a $1 billion company, no investment bank wants to take you to IPO.
Right.
If you're under 100 million, you can get acquired. If you're over $1 billion, you can go public. In between 100 million and $1 billion,
Very tough space.
there are tens of thousands of startups and really great companies in between 100 million and $1 billion that cannot go public. Direct listing like Slack is the answer, and Vertalo is going to enable direct listing for all companies that want to get liquidity for their real company.
That is
using
super
digital
fascinating.
asset
All right. Fantastic. This is Amy Wan with Dave Hendricks, and thank you so much for watching.